This is Brenna Quigley, your personal geologist and terroir guide. Join me on a road trip through the geologic history of your favorite wine regions around the world. This is Roadside Terroir. Hello, everyone. This is our final episode of the season, and we are so grateful to have you with us. As we look into the future of Roadside Terroir, I am so excited to finally officially announce our brand new wine club and community, the Single Vineyard Collective. We've partnered with the best of the best New York City-based retailer Leon & Son to bring you a small selection of very special wines. Throughout this season, we've talked about just how difficult it is as a consumer to make informed buying choices, especially when it comes to farming, and especially when you also want wine that's going to taste great and over-deliver for the price. So we're going to do the work for you by selecting the very best examples of terroir-driven, thoughtfully farmed bottles by producers we love and admire. The wines will be paired with their very own members-only podcast episodes where Chris, Leon, and I taste through the wines together and break down their terroir, farming, and all of the juicy stories behind the bottle. The wines will range in value, so you're sure to have something special for every occasion. Head to roadsideterroir.com to sign up and learn more. This episode is sponsored in part thanks to Tablas Creek Vineyard and Lone Wolf Imports. Based in Portland, Oregon, the mission of Lone Wolf Imports is to share exceptional old world wines with wine lovers throughout the Pacific Northwest. This multi-part series on the intricacies of farming philosophies is brought to you thanks to the wonderful team at Becky Wasserman and Company. The Wassermans have been our partners, mentors, and friends for as long as Roadside Terroir has existed, and we couldn't do our work at this level of detail and commitment to excellence without them. Thank you so much. If you're looking for more ways to support Roadside Terroir besides signing up for the new wine club, consider becoming a Roadside Insider for access to hours and hours of extended bonus interviews, maps, travel guides, invites to events and travel opportunities, and a subscription to my new Substack newsletter. Insider memberships and wine clubs make great gifts. Check out our website, Roadside Terroir, to learn more. As always, don't drink and drive, and remember to keep your eyes on the road. This episode contains explicit language. We've come a long way in the past 6 months, and together have learned so much about farming and its connection to the earth. Since the first episode, we've broken down the philosophical basis for farming, traced the history of conventional farming and the rise of organic farming, compared how different regions, geologies, and traditions lend themselves to different farming styles, and pried into the mystical and the practical aspects of biodynamics.
Birds. They're a little quieter now, but a few minutes ago they were super loud.
Yeah.
And you said I turned the music on right before you got here. Okay. Faut faire attention.
Oui, ça peut être glissant.
Dry grass is very slippery, actually.
And so you said the whole parcel is about 0.4 hectares?
0.42.
Okay. And 0.3 is vines?
Yeah.
Okay, and all the rest are the terraces and
yes, biodiversity, juniper, a little bit of the forest. There are 5 to 10 meters of mine just there in the forest. I have also olive trees, chestnuts, cherry trees.
Did you plant them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You planted a lot of these trees here? Or some you left?
I left some trees. This juniper, I think, is 100 years old, I think. And I only plant maybe 20, 25 trees, more for eating fruit. You know, chestnut, olive trees, plums, cherry trees, something like this. Some blackberries. wild, but I planted some gooseberry. So I think it's important to you finish the work, the job on a row, and you finish with the apricot tree. You take some apricot in June. You have the smile. It's very simple.
And it all began right here, in the village of Cornas in the northern Rhone Valley with Cyril Courvoisier. So you are a regenerative farmer. Is that how you describe your farming style?
Yeah. Regenerative farming is a farming where you try to find the best way for everything work alone. Almost alone. Just the farmer...
To work on its own.
Yes, the farmer has just to be a chef d'orchestre.
Orchestra director or...
Oh, yeah, chef director.
And to manage, but to do less and less things. But you have to do something and to choose something. So it's not doing nothing, because if you do nothing, you will have a forest. And the vines are not inside the forest. So you have to decide if this one should be alive or dead.
Regenerative farming, the focus of our discussion today, will take us beyond a conversation about growing healthy crops and force us to consider how our choices, how we farm, what we eat and drink, and who we choose to support, impact the planet as a whole. This might sound a bit lofty, but it's no joke. To put it bluntly, the way we're farming today is depleting our topsoils, destroying biodiversity, and contributing to our changing climate. More than 1 billion hectares, that's nearly 2.5 billion acres, are used for various kinds of crop farming around the world. And if something doesn't change, the consequences will be disastrous. Not just for some of us, but for all of us. The planet is in trouble, and so are the vineyards. Modern farming has put historic vineyards right in the crosshairs of climate change. Vineyards that have existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years, are heating up and washing away. Regenerative farming is the first farming philosophy that actively confronts these modern crises. Its goal isn't just to minimize the negative impacts of agriculture, but to actually fight back. Today, we're going to discuss how regenerative practices could actually make agriculture a benefit to our planet, how it could increase biodiversity and reverse the dangerous accumulation of carbon in our atmosphere, while also making our farms, vineyards included, more resilient to the inevitable effects of the changing climate. Regenerative agriculture is rooted in the ideals of permaculture and indigenous practices, philosophies that place us humans as functioning members of a larger ecosystem. We are caretakers and stewards who have a responsibility towards the land and to future generations. Not to be dramatic, but we're talking about saving the world here. As inspiring as this sounds, it's hard not to worry that it all might be too good to be true. There must be some catch. Is this all for real? Is farming this way actually practical? What are the risks to the farmers? And could this really apply to everyone? So let's find out. 6 years ago, I had never heard the term regenerative agriculture before, and frankly, still somehow struggle to pronounce it. The method of farming was first introduced to me by the winemaker Megan Zobeck, who was just starting to integrate regenerative practices to the vineyards at Burgess Cellars in Napa Valley. Fast forward to today, and it has rapidly become the buzziest of buzzwords in the farming world. Megan was recently hired as director of winemaking at none other than Opus One, and was selected for this incredibly prestigious position because of her experience, curiosity, and dedication to regenerative viticulture. 10 years ago, there were no certifying bodies for regenerative agriculture. Today, there are at least 7. The term regenerative agriculture was first coined by Robert Rodale at the Rodale Institute in Pennsylvania in the 1980s as an alternative to sustainable agriculture in order to emphasize growth and improvement over mere conservation. While it's been around for a while, the idea has exploded in the past decade or so. The outdoor clothing brand Patagonia took a major interest in regenerative agriculture in 2015, which will become significant in a minute, and the documentary Kiss the Ground, featuring Woody Harrelson, was released in 2020. Suddenly, everyone was talking about soil health.
So regenerative viticulture, what is it exactly?
Here's our dear friend, sponsor, and farming superfan, Paul Wasserman.
Most people, when they're thinking about regenerative viticulture, myself included, are lumping in a bunch of practices. So limited or no-till, vegetative cover, agroforestry, the integration of animals, etc., etc. And I found that it was difficult to find a baseline for it. The certification organizations are mostly recent and have different requirements, and not a ton of wineries that they have actually certified. So some of them are going to include social welfare, animal welfare. All of them have a very strong biodiversity component. Most of them are not specific to viticulture and actually have to carve out some exceptions for viticulture, obviously crop rotation, for example.
While there is still no official legal definition for regenerative agriculture in the US or the EU as of 2025, there's a general understanding of the foundational ideas. It could be simply defined as an overarching farming philosophy and movement that looks to rebuild, hence regenerate, healthy soils and functioning biodiverse ecosystems within an agricultural context. It brings together the health of the plants and the soil with that of the animals and the people doing the farming, all to coexist together and create a functional farm that doesn't rely on extensive external inputs. Still kind of a mouthful. But it all starts with the soil.
So the single most important foundation of regenerative viticulture is soil health. We need to feed the soil with organic matter, and we need to not destroy its structure. The best way to feed soil is to maintain a diverse vegetative cover. Animals also help with manure. And we need to try and keep the vegetative cover as year-round as possible and avoid tillage, but also other means of compaction.
A lot of what we consider regenerative agriculture is based on our scientific understanding of the soil food web. That is, the many complex ways in which plants interact with their environment. From the smallest bacteria and fungi to insects, birds, and mammals, and how all of that connects to large-scale factors like climate. As we discussed in episode 1 of this season, soil is the thin, unconsolidated surface layer of the earth, composed of a mineral component, which comes from rocks, an organic component, which comes from life, decaying plants and animals, and a huge microbial community, plus water and air, that all together are capable of supporting plant life. A soil structure holds all of these components in place. Without any one of them, a soil ceases to function. If a soil doesn't function, plants can't grow, and we all suffer. In only the past 100 years or so, conventional farming has decimated the world's soils. Monocultures farmed with chemical herbicides, fungicides, and pesticides have destroyed the microbial communities. Tractors and overworking the soils have destroyed its structure, leaving little to no room for air and water. Many agricultural soils are so depleted, they have to be pumped up with supplemental water and fertilizer, and the plants still struggle. This is expensive and literally not sustainable. Regenerative farming is primarily concerned with rebuilding soil. Healthier soils support more resilient plants and actually create more nutritious food. But what does this have to do with climate change? According to the Regenerative Organic Alliance, a collective founded by planet-conscious groups such as Patagonia, Dr. Bronner's, and the Rodale Institute, agriculture today uses 70% of our fresh water, is responsible for 60% of our lost biodiversity, and 30% of total carbon emissions. That means that you and I, just by feeding ourselves, are contributing to these massive global problems, which feels pretty bleak. But regenerative agriculture reminds us that it doesn't have to be this way. Instead of contributing to the problem, our eating, drinking, and general existence could actually be part of the solution, particularly through a process called carbon sequestration. Regenerative farming practices can actually capture carbon out of the atmosphere and trap it back into our soils. Okay, bear with me. We're going to keep digging into soil here for a second, and then I promise we're going to deliver you some baby lambs. Soil naturally accumulates carbon from the atmosphere, but only with the help of the plant and microbial communities that support it. Plants literally suck carbon out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis and put it into their own tissues. This carbon then gets transferred into the soil in a variety of ways, including the growth of plant roots, the dead and decaying plants, and crop residues themselves, and through root exudates. When the plants die, microbes break down their tissues and respire some of this carbon back to the atmosphere. Both mycorrhizal fungal networks and clay particles help the soil to form aggregates, which are essential for soil structure and health and also help capture more carbon. But that's only part of the story. This carbon is not yet considered stable. Some is released back to the atmosphere through microbial respiration, as I mentioned, and some is only held in the soil for days to decades before being released. It must be converted into stable organic carbon, or humus, in order to truly sequester it. Only specialized soil organisms can convert the toughest plant tissues, such as things like lignins and chitins, into humus, and this process takes time. But once formed, stable organic carbon, or humus, is very difficult to break down and can potentially be held in the soil for hundreds or maybe even thousands of years. Humus is basically soil gold. It holds up to 4 to 6 times its own weight in water. Holding and releasing this water causes it to swell and shrink, which improves the soil's texture and inevitably brings water and soil organisms deeper into the soil, thus creating more humus. It also stores nutrients, such as calcium, magnesium, copper, zinc, and more, in a similar way that clay holds on to nutrients, but with even more power. Many complex symbiotic relationships exist in the soil that allow for the exchange of these nutrients and other vital materials, such as water, between the soil, microbial communities, and plants. This is the carbon cycle. Plants collect carbon from the atmosphere, which is eventually consumed by microbes who release it back into the atmosphere as CO2. If the soil is continuously disturbed, like through tilling, and new plant material is added to the soil, the microbes ramp up and release even more CO2, which is then put back into the atmosphere. But if the ecosystem is balanced and soil disruption is minimized, then that carbon has a better chance of being converted into humus, which will sequester the carbon for much, much longer, to a point where more carbon is actually held in the soil than is released. The International Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, has estimated that up to 5.3 gigatons of CO2 could potentially be sequestered per year by 2030. It's thought that this rate of sequestration could continue for up to 40 or more years before the soil becomes saturated with carbon. From 2000 to 2010, total agricultural emissions were estimated to be between 5 to 5.8 gigatons of CO2 equivalents per year, which includes other greenhouse gases such as methane. This means that regenerative farming could actually make global agriculture a carbon sink. And, best case scenario, not just resist climate change, but start to reverse it. When we look at the actual practices involved in regenerative farming, it all starts to make a lot of sense. Here's Paul Wasserman again.
So I'm going to give you the 5 pillars according to the Regenerative Viticulture Foundation. Number 1, minimize soil disturbance. Number 2, keep living roots in the soil all year round. Number 3, grow a broad diversity of plants to provide habitats for fauna and help keep diseases in check. Number 4, keep the ground covered. Number 5, integrate animals.
These practices are all a part of building life back into the soils, with the ultimate goal of rebuilding or regenerating them. Minimizing disturbance, such as tilling, limits the CO2 released back into the atmosphere while also protecting soil structure and biodiversity. Covering the soil reduces the temperature and loss of water to evaporation, and also limits CO2 emissions. Cover crops increase photosynthesis, biodiversity, and carbon storage. Minimizing compaction protects soil structure. Animals add fertility to the soil and increase soil biodiversity. All of this together forces us to get out of our own way and allow the farm to function as its own ecosystem.
And don't forget that the soil make the plants, but the plants make the soil. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the more your vines produce mm-hmm. sugar, lipids, many things, they are a part of the product which is in the grapes, but there's a lot in the wood, in the roots, in the soil, for bacteria, fungi. And the more you are sending a lot of things in the soil, the more you improve the soil around the roots. And after everything, it's easy because bacteria will improve the soil around to transform maybe potassium in a form which is good for the roots. The mycorrhizae will give some water from 20 meters far, many things like this.
These are all great things for the health of the planet. But let's be honest, not everyone believes it's their job to save the world. And very few people can actually afford to bear the brunt of the associated risks when it comes to their own livelihoods. I should also note that a lot of these carbon numbers, such as the potential amount of carbon that could be sequestered and how long it can be expected to stay in the soil, are still debated. And some scientists continue to doubt just how realistic it is to make agriculture a net carbon sink.
Listen, no vine farmer I know, when I talk to them about the wines they make and the farming choices that they're doing, believe they are saving the world. Their approach is really about sustaining their businesses, their lives, their cultural heritage.
This is Raj Vaidya, former sommelier and a good friend who has some of the strongest relationships to great winemakers from all sides of the debate around the world. Raj is the ultimate pragmatist, and while he respects and is fascinated by farmers who are pushing the boundaries of great viticulture, he insists it isn't the only way to make great wine.
The way that I understand the motivation behind working with regenerative farming is really mostly coming from how to deal with climate change amongst my friends. So the people who I know who work this way mostly are perturbed by dry conditions, high potential alcohol, shorter growing seasons, and therefore less developed aromatics and complexity in the grapes themselves. They're worried about the effects of the early bud breaks, spring frost, things like that. So regenerative farming, what they've seen is, in terms of plant health and the cycle of the plants tend to be more frost resistant. They are also more resistant to disease. When you have this healthy mycelium growth, that does have a retarding effect to various maladies and disease. They are definitely better off in terms of water retention. They're more efficient at finding water, and they're more resistant to the negative effects of drought, which is another, climate change related thing. And also it's to combat all of these things that the producers who I speak to most often seem to be addressing.
So whether you want to save the world or not, regenerative farming practices should help the individual farmer as well.
But the vineyard, normally the vines are not in the forest, they are just around the forest.
Okay.
That's why they cannot manage with oaks, chestnuts and pines, because it's not the same mycorrhizae. So I said, okay, we have to choose which one should participate to the party.
Cyril is a true hero of ours and an excellent example of a regenerative success story. He farms just under 3 hectares, that's a little over 6 acres, and this is real fairy tale grape farming. A hardworking vigneron tending his vines by hand, resting under the shade of a cherry tree while being serenaded by a chorus of songbirds. He doesn't work directly with animals, but instead lets the wild animals come to him. His wines can be incredible, but they're hard to find. Only a few cases make it into the US each year, and by the time they arrive at your table, they're not going to be cheap. While this is a stunning and inspirational model for what's possible, it's hard to imagine how this could translate on a larger scale. I think I got the bee buzzing.
Good. All right.
That was awesome.
Yep.
It's really special.
Thank you.
In order to see regenerative farming operate at a larger scale, we spent some time visiting with the team at Tablas Creek in Paso Robles, California. Tablas Creek is perhaps one of the most forward-thinking vineyards in the U.S., and they've been that way since their inception in 1989. They are the first ever Regenerative Organic certified vineyard in the world, and at 270 acres, or over 100 hectares. That is no small feat. They are trailblazers in many ways. In addition to their regenerative certification, are also certified organic and biodynamic. They have a flock of sheep, solar panels, environmentally friendly packaging, and a large portion of the vineyard is dry farmed. They spearheaded the Rhone Ranger movement in the U.S. back in the 90s by legally importing some of the first ever cuttings of many of our favorite Rhone grape varieties, such as Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, Counoise, and Viognier.
Cool. So we have been here now 36 years at Tablas Creek. We are one of the pioneers of the California Rhone movement.
This is Jason Haas, partner and manager of Tablas Creek. His late father, Robert, founded Tablas Creek in 1989 in partnership with the Perrin family at the famed Châteauneuf-du-Pape estate Château de Beaucastel in the southern Rhone Valley of France.
The whole idea came out of a friendship that developed between my dad and the two brothers who've run the Perrin family in Château de Beaucastel since the 1970s, Jean-Pierre and François.
Jason's father, Robert, was also a wine importer who founded the import company Vineyard Brands and represented Château de Beaucastel in the U.S. So he spent a lot of time traveling through California with the Perrins selling wine every year. It was during these travels that they all became convinced that California was a place to make world-class wines, and that there was a huge opportunity for Rhone varieties that were essentially unknown here at the time. So they set out to create a Rhone-focused vineyard together, somewhere in California. After an extensive search, they landed in Paso Robles because of its climate, acidity-preserving limestone soils, and adequate rainfall.
So it was really to their surprise as much as anyone else's that this is where they picked to do this riff on Châteauneuf-du-Pape.
Legally importing grape cuttings is a big, slow process. After a 3-year quarantine, they have to be propagated in their own nursery. So while they purchased the property in 1989, they weren't able to plant the vineyard until 94, and didn't have their first tiny crop until 97.
We're down here in our kind of nursery demonstration area.
Mm-hmm.
These vines that you see in the pots here are some of the original mother vines that came through that quarantine process. So like this is one of the 5 Grenache Blanc vines from which all of the Grenache Blanc in America is now descended,
cool.
Which I think is super cool. Well, let's actually, we can walk. This is
Wait,
so.
is this
So this is the hillside.
Okay.
So this is like you can see. Here's Mourvedre,
Yeah.
planted in 1994, own rooted, and you start to go up this hill, and you get to Counoise. So this is the first ever Counoise in America, right here, up 5 rows up the side of the hill, and we'll continue up to the top of the hill because that'll get us to where I want to go next.
All right.
As long as you don't mind the climb, it's definitely the shortest distance between the 2 points.
As we walk, Jason explains how climate change quickly began to threaten some of the factors that his father and the Perrin family had spent so long searching for, particularly intense heat spikes late in the growing season and extended years of drought. The vineyard had been organic since its inception, but concerns with how it would respond to drought and heat inspired them to begin experimenting with biodynamics in 2010.
That was our baseline, was that we were going to be farming organically because we didn't know what the character was going to be of our terroir, but we wanted to give it the best possible chance of showing itself.
Okay.
So you can actually see, it's a pretty good vantage point, the western slice of the property that we converted to biodynamic. So it was essentially 20 acres all along that western edge of the property. So you can see where that tractor...
They were excited about biodynamics for its potential to help grow healthier vines that would hopefully have a longer life than conventionally farmed vines, especially with an uncertain future in terms of weather and climate. But they were pleasantly surprised when the biodynamic wines almost immediately started outperforming the rest of the wines in terms of taste and quality.
We expanded from 20 acres to 40 acres in 2012 and saw a similar leap in our internal scoring. And for us, we were like, well, okay, we still don't know why this is happening, but this is enough for us to try to convert the whole vineyard to biodynamic. So that was the year that we got a flock of sheep and like really invested in trying to to bring this out more broadly. We were definitely on the practical side.
Yeah.
We are not particularly believers in things like the biodynamic calendar.
Okay.
But in terms of the impact of like micronutrients or low concentration of microorganisms, like that makes sense to us.
Right.
So we had already been doing like a decent number of biodynamic things. We'd already been doing a lot of cover cropping. We'd already been using a lot of composting and compost tea. We've been experimenting with interplanting like herbs and things like that in the vines. And then in 2012, adding the flock of sheep and doing some of the like integrated livestock, intentional grazing pieces of things. That grew pretty fast from the dozen sheep that we started with in 2012 till 2016. We had probably 75 sheep at that point.
Okay.
So ended up getting our biodynamic certification in 2017. At that point we were doing the whole vineyard and were able to get our certification. And we thought that that was where we were going to land. But when we were approached in 2019 about being a part of the pilot program for the Regenerative Organic certification, like we finally found a certification program that everything kind of fit and clicked into place for us. I mean, it was mostly the same practices as biodynamics without the kind of mystical explanations that didn't strike us as terribly plausible. It also was more measured than biodynamics. Biodynamics is very process-based. Like you do things in the biodynamic canon and you go through the audit and you're certified biodynamic. With regenerative organic, you have to actually be taking soil samples to show that the things that you're doing are improving the soils in the ways that they should be, adding organic matter, adding biological activity, adding biodiversity.
Yeah.
And then it also included a couple of things that weren't in biodynamics or organics, like the animal welfare provisions and the farm worker fairness pillar, and the requirement to wean yourself off of the use of shared resources like groundwater and non-renewable energy that like we were already doing. We're already 100% solar powered, but like those felt to us like really important things for any kind of modern holistic farming protocol. And once we wrapped our heads around all the things that were going to be required, for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, if this exists and is out there and we can do it, like, we should do it.
Yeah.
And so we did. And then got one of the first rounds of ROC certifications in 2020. And I've sort of been acting as an incubator here ever since.
And they really have become a sort of regenerative incubator. Out of the 26 ROC certified vineyards in the U.S., 5 of them are in Paso Robles. So, and when you say pilot program, that was for vineyards or for the whole?
No, it was for the whole ROC protocol. Okay. So we were the only vineyard in that pilot program.
Okay.
So I think there were 13 members of the pilot program. And that was one of the things that appealed to us too, is that it was not a wine-specific certification. It was a broader attempt to set up agriculture as a part of the solution to some of the world's most difficult problems instead of just no longer a part of the problem. I mean, agriculture uses something like 31% of the Earth's landmass and employs 27% of the Earth's population. Like, if agriculture is not a part of the solution to things like resource scarcity, climate change, topsoil loss, inequality, like these are probably not solvable problems. And ROC, because it's a modern system, developed this century, not 100 years ago the way that biodynamics was. Like it is consciously addressing modern challenges.
Regenerative farming at this scale is no simple task and requires a whole team to understand not just the specific goals, but a broader vision. Getting a farm to function like an ecosystem requires lots of moving parts and collaboration between lots of different species.
Oh, there she is. Hey!
Hello!
Do you know each other?
In just the past couple years, Tablas Creek hired on Erin Mason as a regenerative specialist, a role that requires her to wear a lot of different hats, including baby sheep wrangler.
The best is in the afternoon when all the lambs just like start palling around.
But her main value is her ability and vision to manage the various moving parts that allow the vineyard to function at a practical level on such a large scale. After returning to the winery, which is still in harvest at this time, Erin brought me out to a little pasture filled with dozens of tiny little baby sheep and even more pregnant mamas. maybe the cutest thing I have ever seen, and easily the most distracting place I have ever attempted to conduct an interview.
Oh my goodness.
Everybody needs a brush.
Don't know who's the cutest. It's not a competition.
The sheep were accompanied by a small pack of great, big, fluffy guard dogs who seemed entirely too sweet to be in charge of security, 2 of which were still puppies themselves.
Hello.
This is Osa.
Osa, hello.
She's part of the second generation guard dogs. And then we just got 2 new puppies. Oh. We're trying a different breed, Turkish Boz.
Okay.
So we have 2 that came in August because why not get some puppies during harvest?
Who doesn't need to? Hi.
What, are you stuck, baby? What's going on over there? What's happening? Just looking for mom.
Hello, baby. Oh my gosh, so these are brand new.
Yeah, I think the first, what is today? I think our first one was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
The flock is the smallest it's been in quite some time. I actually reduced the size of the flock. When I got here, it came at the end of 2022. The size of the flock was over 300.
Okay.
Which is a little bit more than I think we can maintain in a healthy way here.
Okay. And how big is it now?
Right now we have roughly, say about 60, 70 ewes, and then about 15 ewe lambs that were born last year. And then as of today, I think we've got about 29, 30 lambs that were born within the last 2 weeks. Yeah. So significantly smaller. I'm hoping when we're done with lambing that we end up somewhere around 120, because most of the boys, the ram lambs, will go to harvest.
Okay.
So we'll keep them through the grazing season. And that's one of the reasons why we lamb this time of year. I mean, traditionally you would see spring lambing.
Yeah.
But for us, it's a couple of things. I mean, we need the numbers as high as possible going into the dormant season of the vines, which is our grazing season, essentially. But then we are sustaining the flock year-round on the property. And so from the vines, once bud break happens, they'll go into the woodlands and any surrounding pastures or just kind of native land that we have to graze. And certainly depending on precipitation that year and what is out there, I feel more comfortable to sustain a group closer to 80 to 100 during that time. So right now it's just about getting through lambing in an area that's very low maintenance, while the shepherds spend a little bit more time prepping for cover crop seed.
Okay.
We have about 70 acres of dry farmed vineyard that has to be gone through and pre-pruned so the tractors can get through and put seed down.
Okay.
We have to get straw out for erosion control. We have to get compost, getting that settled in as we get to the last things, like coming out of the winery. We're getting some compost down that was brought in one of the areas. So it's like freeing them up to do a bit of that work. And especially this year is important because we're still harvesting.
Is that a llama?
Alpaca. Yeah, kind of the last leftover.
Protective too?
There was an idea that they were good protectors, I think, initially when they brought the alpacas and the llamas and the donkeys in. And I think in some instances they probably are, but not for lions and bears. There's been bears on the property.
Oh, wow.
So they needed something a lot more aggressive. I think the dogs came in 2018. The first shepherd that was here, Nathan Shepherd, he was pretty insistent on getting guard dogs, and we haven't had, I think last year I lost one to a coyote last year, but other than that, since I've been here, we haven't had any losses due to predators.
Well, that's good.
So the dogs do their job.
Okay. Yeah.
Erin explains that with over 31 newborns so far this year, they have only lost 2, which is considered quite successful. I can't imagine how complicated it is to manage all of this during harvest, and that's only a fraction of her responsibilities here. As a regenerative specialist, she also oversees all of the compliance to maintain their various certifications. Certifications for regenerative agriculture as a whole are very new and are rapidly changing. It's all very hard to keep track of, so I asked Roadside's own Paul Knittel to take a closer look at what these certifications are and what they require.
The very first certification for regenerative agriculture was Regenerative Organic Certified, ROC, which was founded by the Regenerative Organic Alliance in 2017. Remember Patagonia? They only began certifying officially in 2020 after the pilot run that included Tablas Creek. ROC is one of the stricter regenerative certifications out there, so on her visit, Brenna was naturally curious what the requirements are.
What do we need to know about what is required of a regenerative farm?
Well, in terms of this farm in particular,
Yeah.
Tablas Creek, for that in general, they sort of function from this like three-pillar positioning of, people, animal, land, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of focus on good practices with soil health and tracking organic matter. We have, I think, 4 different sites around the property that they did baseline testing for in 2019 for the original approval. And at this point, we're on an every 3-year testing. So, I mean, essentially, they're looking for things like soil organic matter, active carbon. We're looking at water holding capacity. We're looking at bulk density for compaction. And they have various terms as far as every 3 years you need to baseline this, and it has a lot to do with tracking organic matter and active carbon.
Yeah.
And then there are other things they say every 3 years we'd like to see some results from these areas, and it's kind of tailored to the farm. So for us, I look at water holding capacity. We obviously have a lack of water and we dry farm. And then I look at bulk density because of our soils. Compaction is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And so with the ROC, you have a regenerative organic system plan, and that is pretty in-depth. I have to track basically any tillage that we do, plantings, you're tracking flora and fauna. And then with the animals, we work with a third-party certifier, and they're looking really for some sort of animal welfare certification.
Okay.
That shows that you are taking care of your animals, that they are well cared for, that they have a proper nutrition program, that, I have to track all of our births, all of our deaths. They want to see facilities, they want to see where they graze, they come and inspect the flock, they want to look at where we're sourcing any supplemental feed from, what that looks like. So there's that portion. And then there's the people side, which the Regenerative Organic certification has a couple different levels, if you will. So there's a bronze, a silver, and a gold, and we are gold certified standard, which means that we also certify on the social side through a company called EFI. It's the Equitable Farm Initiative. They created an offshoot of that program called Ergo, and it is to do audit for the gold standard of Regenerative Organic certified. And that is much more complicated.
Oh, okay.
They're looking at equity and pay requirements, and there's a lot of conversation currently both between the people who maintain the Ergo standards and the Regenerative Organic Alliance about what a fair wage looks like. And it's especially challenging in California because so many of the operations we have do outsource. I mean, we have full-time people that work here, but we do outsource a lot of labor at different times of the year, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And so they are also auditing those farm labor contractors as well. And a lot of that is about worker safeties, worker health, pay, but it's also about building a model of leadership here that incorporates the labor team, not just the management team. And so that decision making and conversation around what's happening on the property is involving of everyone.
Sounds like a lot? Well, as Brenna mentioned, Tablas Creek is not only certified regenerative.
That's the regenerative organic piece of our certifications, but the main baseline standard for the regenerative organic certification is that you're certified organic. So then we also maintain organic certification for the sheep, for the vineyard, and for the olives.
Okay.
And so there's the requirements of that. We are also certified through Demeter Biodynamic. So we have requirements for that. I guess, if you will, we're maintaining 5 different compliance requirements for
That's impressive.
the program.
And then you're also out here reuniting lambs with their mamas every morning.
Reuniting lambs with mom. And making maps for cover crop plans and making sure the guys are set up for that and falling behind on.
In the few years since ROC was established, at least 6 more regenerative certifications have sprung up, each with different requirements. According to the Regenerative Viticulture Foundation, there are 110 wineries certified regenerative in total as of October 2025, 77 of which are based in the United States. There isn't a state-legislated definition for regenerative in the US or the EU for now, like there is for organic. And unlike biodynamic, which has been copyrighted by Demeter in the US, really anyone can say they are working regeneratively. The main issue with pushing for a legal definition is the ongoing disagreement over the criteria it should include. Another problem is whether to use a process-based approach, which would include certain farming practices, outcome-based criteria that would measure the impact of the practices, or both. There isn't even a consensus on whether it should be required to be organic in order to be regenerative, a point that our friend Paul Wasserman finds particularly important.
One of the thoughts I've had about regenerative viticulture is that, to me, it's not a path beyond organic or biodynamic viticulture, but actually a parallel path that may be way more important in lieu of climate change, of depleting our soils, than whether or not you use a chemical for very specific things, such as fighting high fungal disease. So I believe that regenerative viticulture, as it applies to soil health, biodiversity, is way, 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 way more important. And we're not talking about herbicides here or chemical fertilizers, but using sporadically something stronger to fight something very precise.
Some certifications make organic farming obligatory, like the ROC and the Regenerative Viticulture Alliance. This one, by the way, is the only certification specifically designed for wine. Others, like Certified Regenerative by A Greener World, don't require an organic certification, but include rules regarding social and animal welfare and the farm's carbon footprint. Land to Market doesn't prescribe any practices and instead focuses purely on measurable outcomes like carbon sequestration and the like. And to make things more confusing, some certifications like ROC even introduce different levels of certification to allow for a step-by-step implementation. Keeping track of all the different requirements takes a lot of organization.
Everything about my job is unfamiliar to me, except how to manage systems. Like, I've been an operator, that's what I know. And I understand how to take sort of like macro level ideas and implement them on the micro level. And also how to manage people in that dynamic.
Right.
And you have these very dynamic systems that do require someone who can stop and connect the dots. And I think that it's going to be more important to have people at the macro level who can say, like, this is, what we need to do, when we need to do it, who's going to do it, how long should it take? What's it going to cost? How does that factor into like what our greater goals are? What are our greater goals?
Yeah.
And then how to manage the often untalked about component of regenerative agriculture, which is the people within that system. Because to me, there's no more important piece than the people, because managing a system like this does require everyone, especially on the decision-making level, to be on the same page and be coming from the same place as far as like what your intention is. It doesn't just end like in the farming sphere, there's a whole tasting room. And I think that like that is all part of it. That's still an ecosystem that we're maintaining too.
As usual, it takes a village and a shitload of paperwork. So far, we have mostly discussed all of the benefits of regenerative farming. And while we personally are pretty convinced that farming this way is the way of the future, there are still some real concerns and risks worth discussing. The biggest controversy surrounding regenerative viticulture is its insistence on keeping ground cover year-round, or at least mostly year-round. In almost every conversation we've had for this season, to till or not to till was a huge topic, whether people were for or against it. We've heard many good reasons for green cover: sequestering carbon and building organic matter, feeding microorganisms and increasing biodiversity. But if no-till farming was simply superior, wouldn't everybody be doing it? To start, it is worth revisiting our discussion with Jean Gonon in episode 5 to recall that for the past several decades, tilling, or otherwise working the soil, was seen as the best way to move away from conventional farming. Instead of spraying dangerous herbicides, producers returned to manually removing the grasses and weeds. There is a strong emotional connection that many farmers have to tilling. There are also practical issues as well, of course. Other plants compete with the vine for scarce resources. If we leave them in or even sow them, they might just end up winning the competition and dramatically reducing your yield. It's hard to make good wine from clover and grass. In episode 4, Seichi Saito of Domaine Petit Droit told us the story of Simon Bize going no-till in a vineyard, and how he ultimately had to replant the entire parcel. There are real limiting factors like water, nutrients, and frankly, money and skills to consider as well. Your yields will likely go way down for several years once you stop cultivating, which you have to be able to afford. You need new and different machinery for managing green cover, for seeding and mulching, and those cost money too. And you have to have the buy-in from your team to implement a lot of changes, which, realistically, not everybody in farming has a proclivity for. And as we mentioned already, tilling is still very much the lesser evil compared to herbicides such as glyphosate for dealing with weeds, and has been considered a hallmark for good organic viticulture for a long time. There is no easy way out of this conundrum. Farmers have to work with the soils, the vines, and the climate that they have, and they have to make a living doing so. So, it's complicated. Avoiding bare soils is certainly an important part of regenerative farming, and there are many good reasons to avoid tilling. But we shouldn't ignore the individual case, and there can also be good reasons to till. The risks associated with tilling parallel many of the risks with regenerative viticulture as a whole. It is a lot of work that requires a lot of skill and is therefore also very expensive. The risks to implementing these practices poorly could mean devastating losses in both the short and long term, all of which contributes to rising prices for the final product. In a moment when wine is already often viewed as expensive and exclusive, we don't want to push people away. Besides, there are so many more great things that producers can do besides not tilling.
One major way farmers are adding flexibility to the idea of regenerative viticulture, and often taking it far beyond what we think of as its baseline, is by incorporating the philosophies of permaculture and agroforestry to move viticulture away from the vast monoculture it's become.
The first thing to note is that some places are just naturally biodiverse. So, for example, at the Cérols in the Côte Rouennaise, it's not a sea of uninterrupted vines. The vineyards are isolated, they're already surrounded by trees, pastures, plenty of biodiversity. So even though they don't practice it, they already have it. But if you are going to integrate it, there are several ways, from least intensive to most intensive. So you can plant isolated trees or small clumps of trees in your vineyards or around your vineyards. You can plant hedges around your vineyards, or you can integrate it by interspersing rows of trees in your actual vineyards, which, if the vineyard is already planted, requires that you rip up a row of vines to plant a row of trees. And it has several objectives or different things it's targeting. Of course, the first one is creating biodiversity, which is very important. A biodiverse vineyard is much more resistant against diseases and pests. But some of the other targets may be very specific. A good example of this would be the Hill of Chaume in the Loire Valley. They had a comparative study between the vineyards in Savinière and the Hill of Chaume. Savinière being way more diverse with more trees, more hedges, and things like that, and the Hill of Chaume being a sea of vines, basically. And what they realized is that in Savinière, where there was biodiversity, the bat population was able to control the grapevine moth population that eats the buds. So as a group on the Hill of Chaume, and the wineries that we work with would be Vanessa at Château de Plaisance, Emmanuel at Domaine Augereau, and Patrick Baudouin, and other domains on the hill, have banded together to create habitats for the bat as a natural predator. And they're planting hedges on the hill. Another use of agroforestry, especially if it's intensive, is shading. Kai Schätzel in Nierstein in Germany has applied it to another Grand Cru vineyard called the Hipping. And he's planted 250 trees, I believe, in 1 hectare of vines. It's one of the most intensive agroforestry projects in a serious vineyard, in a Grand Cru, that I've heard of. So, obviously, agroforestry poses some problems. The first one being that trees can compete for water and nutrients. Then it can complicate mechanization, the use of tractors. And some fear that it will probably decrease photosynthesis and ripening for the vines that are right next to the trees. Lastly, in places where the parcels are very small, such as in Burgundy, for example, it's difficult to imagine coughing up a row of vines if you plant trees instead.
The nice thing about farming in this way is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. As we discussed earlier, going completely no-till is just not a reality for many vineyards right now. But planting trees or other crops could be just as beneficial, or maybe even more. On average, a single tree can absorb over a ton of CO2 over its lifetime. Estimates of CO2 lost to the atmosphere from tilling vary wildly, but most studies cite a number between 1 to 2 tons per acre per tilling event. So, while planting a single tree probably won't do the trick, a tailored program of decreasing tilling combined with planting a variety of trees and other crops could have a pretty substantial carbon payoff. In episode 3, we spoke to Chiara Pepe at Emidio Pepe, who had hoped to stop tilling entirely when she returned to her family's famed Abruzzo vineyards in 2020, and had to accept that this wasn't going to be a fast transition. But that didn't stop her from taking some giant leaps in terms of innovative farming practices.
Pepe makes wine. We farm vineyard mainly, but we also farm many other things. So we try to enrich the landscape with other cultures that are not just vineyard. We have ancient varietals of wheat. We cultivate sunflowers, favas, chickpeas, and we have 10 hectares that are completely dedicated to polyculture. And we farm 20 hectares of vineyard. So right now it's 1/3 of polyculture and 2/3 of vineyard. In the future, we'll try to have half and half. We're working towards that, and I'm excited about that.
Does that mean you'll be taking vines out, or you'll be expanding?
We'll be expanding, yeah. And this winter, we're going to be planting a forest. So I'm excited about that. For now, it's going to be about 1 hectare to start with, but expanding in the future if I find the right spots. But I'm starting with 1 hectare. Of course, this is a 50-year project. Probably I'm not going to see the forest fully grown myself, but I'm excited to do a project that has such a big window span for me.
In one vineyard, Chiara has made the bold move of interplanting trees amongst the vines, with the intention of creating layers of life from the cover crops to the vine canopy to the trees. It's so amazing what you're doing. But so do you think that Abruzzo has like unique qualities that you're able to do this? The soils are able to support it?
Well, listen, we are yet to understand that because I've just started that. So we'll see what happens and how it develops. I think the possibility I've been offered is a lot of freedom. The freedom lays in within space in the first place. So I've got space. I don't have many neighbors. I can potentially buy land to do farming projects, and it's still affordable. So I can do it, and I have fun with it, knowing that I have a buffer of possibilities that I can play with to experiment, to try and watch results. And, the world is watching with me. I don't know if the trees are going to be creating enough shade. I don't know if the vines are going to be suffering from it. I don't see the reason why that should happen. I believe strongly in it, but I cannot prove it yet right now. So I know that I've planted a lot and I'm seeing it grow, but I think the results are going to be visible in 10 plus years. And even after that, the wines are going to be reflecting that. So I feel the responsibility of doing it, but freedom is the answer, I would say.
The only farming philosophies that take this idea even further find their inspiration from the Japanese farming manifesto, The One Straw Revolution, published in 1978 by Masanobu Fukuoka. Fukuoka's farming philosophy is often referred to as do-nothing farming, as it urges farmers to work with nature and not against it. And for the most part, it really means nothing. No chemicals, of course, but also no tilling, weeding, and in some cases, even pruning. Chisa Bize was a self-proclaimed city girl when she first arrived in Savigny-le-Bon, Burgundy from Tokyo in 2008. She learned about farming from Anne-Claude Leflevre's biodynamic school, but wanted to learn more, and soon followed her Japanese roots to find Fukuoka's teachings.
So many interesting things in Japan is happening, and especially, of course, do-nothing agriculture is coming from Fukuoka, Mr. Fukuoka. And I said, wow, if we can do something very renovative, viticulture, just do nothing, it's a dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can go on vacation while the vines are growing.
Yes.
You can, yeah.
So I said, why don't we do that?
Let's do nothing.
Do nothing.
After the unfortunate passing of her husband, Patrick Bize, in 2013, Chisa found herself more and more interested in the work in the vineyards. One little parcel, called Goodlet, had been more or less abandoned already, so she took it as an opportunity to try out doing nothing.
It was very fun. It's jungle. Because we did almost nothing. Actually, 2014 harvest, I go there with the team. And actually, no grape, because it's a jungle.
Okay.
But I said, it's beautiful. How beautiful the dispersal. I want to do something dispersal.
Yeah.
In 2015, she managed to make a small amount of natural wine from this parcel and loved it. So decided she was determined to continue down this path. But then things got real. In 2016, everything was lost to spring frost. Then, 2017, they lost everything to odium. 18 was mildew.
I lost again all the grapes. No, Chisa, what are you doing? You don't do that. You're crazy.
The team thought she was crazy.
Team, yes, everybody, not only team.
Starting in 2019, there were some grapes, and in 2020, she made 1 barrel of wine. Success. They lost everything again in 2021, but to be fair, so did a lot of the Côte d'Or.
And now 22, 23, yes. Now every year I can make the wine from Goodlet. And especially 24, which is very difficult vintage for Bourgogne. So I was very afraid of loss again because of the mildew. But actually, I made a wine. I made a wine as much the big as 22 and 23. So that means that my challenge and the challenge of not actually do nothing, but do lots of things. To reach the do nothing agriculture is approaching, and the soil needs lots of time to at least 5 years. Change the soil, diversify the microorganism in the soil. We need time.
Yeah.
Like wine, and it needs lots of energy and the belief and the spirit of never give up. To do many things is very important to achieve the do nothing.
At a time when the future looks scary, regenerative farming is a welcome ray of hope. The details might still be in motion, and it's not to say there aren't any risks or drawbacks to be concerned about, but it certainly feels like we're on the right track. The world today may not yet be set up for the majority of us to consume exclusively regenerative or even organic products. But with a luxury product like wine, something we don't need to survive, but that I strongly believe should be on our tables on a regular basis, we could make a statement about our values as consumers and set an example for the rest of the agricultural industry.
As a consumer, there's a lot of opportunity today that didn't exist previously to know more about the activities of the farmers with regards to the wines that you find on the shelves. The one thing I always say, though, is that it is not a requirement that something be farmed well for the quality of the wine to be high, but you do get to vote with your dollars. It's not to say that those who don't work this way are evil, but it's, as you said, a luxury product, and in the world of luxury, you get to choose.
At this moment, we have an incredible opportunity to make a real difference in the future of our planet and the future for our children. And all we have to do to support the people doing the dirty, hard, risky work of farming with purpose is to drink their wine. It's a tough job, but I think we're up to the challenge. I ended my day at Tablas Creek speaking with Austin Collins, the vineyard operations manager who literally grew up on the vineyard.
So I live right here.
Okay.
I actually grew up in that house.
Oh my God, you're kidding.
Yeah, we moved there when I was 4.
Wow.
Because my dad was the winemaker here pretty much from the very beginning.
He now lives in this house with his wife and 2 small children and has seen the vineyard through every stage of growth.
So, having grown up here, are there any things that you'd like to see long term within the vineyard, within the farming?
That's a good question.
Like, where does it go? I guess I think of like regenerative farming as being like the top of what people are talking about doing right now.
Yeah, what's the next?
Yeah.
I think it's, like not letting it get diluted, because it is growing still,
Yeah.
I think that like guiding it and not letting it slip away from what we're telling people.
Yeah.
And from what we've always done, like the basis of why we're here.
Yeah.
Keeping focus on vine health, soil health, work, like the labor.
Yeah.
The people that work here, their health, I mean, that's huge. So like taking care of those people and their kids and like making sure that they have a good life here.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping the ethos grounded, I think. And keep it within the moral and, ethical bounds of what the original vision was, and I think that's a good challenge at this scale. Keeping us honest.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great goal. Today.
Yeah.
That is a great goal.
And like I said at the beginning of this conversation, like we haven't changed much. Like it's been this style since the beginning, and like just kind of understanding on a more deeper level is something that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
Right.
I hope you've enjoyed being along for the ride this season for our unorthodox exploration of farming and terroir, and that we've inspired you to think a little bit deeper about the wine in your glass and the incredible places and people who create it. If drinking wine can help save the planet, then let's open another bottle. Thank you so much for being here with us. As we've seen over the course of this season, selecting wines that have the best impact on the planet and your palate is not always easy. So let us help you. Along with our partners at NYC-based retailer Leon & Son, we are so excited to bring you our new wine club and community, the Single Vineyard Collective. At a time when many of us are drinking less, let's make sure the bottles we open are as meaningful as possible. This is the most earth-focused wine club on earth. And it will be expertly paired with our new members-only sister podcast, where Chris, Leon, and I taste through the wines and get into all of the nerdy details. Head to our website, roadsideterroir.com, to sign up. This episode is brought to you by the incredibly thoughtful team at Paul Wasserman and Company, the inspirational farmers at Tablas Creek Vineyard, and the education-obsessed importers at Lone Wolf Imports. Thank you all so much for your support. I'd also like to extend an extra special thank you to our Grand Cru patrons, Stephen and Amy Lippin. We love you, love you, love you. Thank you. Thank you to our guests, Cyril Courvoisier, Paul Wasserman, Raj Vaidya, Jason Haas, Aaron Mason, Chiara Pepe, Chisa Bize, and Austin Collins. If you want to support the show, consider joining the Wine Club, the Single Vineyard Collective, or becoming a Roadside Insider to get all of the behind-the-scenes goodies, including a subscription to my new Substack newsletter where I talk about the holes I'm digging and the wine I'm drinking. You can find out about all of this and more at our website, roadsideterroir.com. This episode and season as a whole is just the tip of the iceberg on all of the great discussions out there about climate change and regenerative viticulture. One of our main sources for scientific information in this episode and others was The New Viticulture by Dr. Jamie Good. Check out our show notes and episode webpage for more resources, including books, research papers, podcasts, and more. Roadside Terroir is hosted and produced by me, Brenna Quigley. Sound engineering, original music, and sound design by Jeff Alvarez. Research, writing, and hosting support by Paul Knittel. Thank you to Claire Shaheen, Isa Eslami, and everyone who helped make Season 3, Farming for Terroir, a reality. Thank you for listening.
Can we go find those new babies?
Yeah, totally.
I'm like hoping if I see enough baby lambs, I'll be less distracted by how cute they are. But I don't know.
I mean, you can hold one if you want. I can try and catch one down and